and Kaiser Permanente discovered an exposure that dramatically increased the risk for 7 out of 10 of the leading causes of death in the United States. In high doses, it affects brain development, the immune system, hormonal systems, and even the way our DNA is read and transcribed. Folks who are exposed in very high doses have triple the lifetime risk of heart disease and lung cancer, and a 20-year difference in life expectancy. And yet doctors today are not trained in routine screening or treatment. Now, the exposure I'm talking about is not a pesticide or a packaging chemical. It's childhood trauma.
Hey everyone, it's your girl Miss Angie, and we are back with another Let's Talk Tuesday. And as you see from the title, we are talking about childhood traumas. So of course I always have to do my research, and I'm always looking to dig deeper into the topic. Just a quick, disclaimer, this is my personal story, my personal opinions on the topic. And like always, if you guys want to share, please comment on the video if you are able to, kind of talk about the topic and different things like that. So anyways, the 10 types of childhood traumas, and then we'll jump into the video. One is physical, sexual, and emotional abuse. Emotional and physical neglect. Living with a family member with mental health or substance use disorders. Witnessing domestic violence. Sudden passing of a loved one. Poverty and racism, discrimination, violence in the community. So these are 10 of the top childhood traumas that children can face. And we also know in the adult life, these are also very, very well-known traumas as well. So anyways, of course, as I talked about in my journey going through counseling, there was a lot of stuff that I have learned about myself. There is a lot that I have learned about things that have just things that you want to know why and what is the deeper root. And you look back to things that have happened in your childhood. And unresolved things that have happened in your childhood will show up when you are an adult. That is it. Plain and simple. Whatever you don't deal with when you were younger, whatever you don't let go of when you were younger, it doesn't matter however it'll show up. It can show up in your 20s. It can show up in your 30s. It can show up in your 40s. It will show up. Something as small as one little detail, one little song, it could be anything that can bring up something that is like, that's a trigger for me, or that brings up this memory of when I was younger. Now, if you are that type of person that has not been through any traumas, any dramas, or whatever the case may be, that is a true blessing. But I truly feel like in life, you are going to face different obstacles, different traumas. That's a part of life. You will face that. Some people feel like, hey, I've been through that and I know how to tackle it. I know how not to let it get me down, and that's good. That's a positive thing. But some of us, like your girl over here, it's not that easy for me. And so, like I said, going through counseling to help me get there and help me deal with it, help me to identify it, truly helps me. So I feel like before I kind of tell this story about myself, when you look at also relationships that you have with people, we are operating in more of a childlike form when we're handling these situations. Let me repeat it again. We are acting in a childlike form when we're dealing with these different situations. The reason being is because we don't know how to handle it as an adult. So we operate back in the child form of how to handle that. So when we're handling arguments, Some of us are running back to how we would handle the argument as a child. When we're looking at relationships, we're not operating in an adult form or form of fashion, but we're operating as a child still because we haven't dealt with how to navigate as a child this situation, maybe how we would operate in a high school relationship or in our younger 20s, and we're not knowing how to communicate as adults. That's why it's so important to know and identify what's the root to what you're struggling with. So I say all that to say, of course, sharing my own personal testimony. When I was younger, in my 20s, I share with you guys about me being in an abusive relationship that was definitely trauma-filled. But then when we look at the relationships that I've been in and some of the choices that I made, they weren't the best anyways. So going back to when I was younger, I would say I'm about 11 or 12. I could be a little younger than that. And this incident took place in church. And it was, it was kind of crazy because before I wanted to even talk about this, I've never shared this on my channel or with a lot of people. I had actually asked my mom, like, do you remember, this story? Because sometimes when you're young, you just want to make sure you like, am I crazy? Like, did this really happen? Like, is this going on? Like, what is this? When you're young, you feel like you're supposed to be carefree, you're supposed to have fun, you're supposed to be enjoying life, and you just feel like, why would trauma come and meet you at such a delicate stage and point in your life? So anyways, within church and you feel comfortable. So on this Sunday, I was sitting next to one of the guys from, we're not too far in age. I want to say he might have been a year or two older than me. But of course, he knows my side of the family, I know his side of the family. So him sitting next to me at church wasn't out of the ordinary or anything. I think we were during service, we were sitting next to each other. I want to say my mom was sitting in the back pew. And so of course we're going through regular service and everything is fine. And of course, I'm listening. Of course, at a young age, you're listening in and out, because when you're in church, you don't really understand everything, but you're trying your best to, be quiet and everything like that. So I don't know if me and him might have had any conversation during service or not. I mean, I'm sure we did probably. As kids, how you always do that quiet whisper and stuff like that, quietly talking. But like I said, it was just a regular Sunday day. And so I remember we were singing songs, going through regular service, and I was remember looking at the preacher. And please, you guys bear with me because this story is, it's just kind of rough telling it. But sitting there and all of a sudden I look over because I felt a hand up my skirt. And I looked over and I'm like, what is going, you don't want to be too loud because you're in church. And his hand was going up my thigh under my skirt while we were sitting in church. And at that point, I blacked out. I can't even remember exactly what happened. I just know me being at a young age, I'm not trying to be loud in church. I remember smacking his hand away and really confused at what just happened. And I don't really remember his response. I don't really think he didn't look disturbed or anything, but it was mad uncomfortable and it was confusing. And it just was like, how do you process that at a young age? So after that happened and service was over, and I think it was right before we went to my grandma's house. I think I was talking to my mom in the car and I was telling her what happened. Or I can't remember because it was very vague around this. I think because I was just in a state of shock. And I remember me telling my mom, whether it was after church, I know I was somewhere private because I just didn't know how to tell my mom. So anyways, I let my mom know. some form in around that time she was able to talk and communicate with his family and letting them know what happened. And then I remember he apologized. And I just was in such a state of shock being that young. Like, why would you put your hands on me? Like, why would you touch me in church, when church is supposed to be that place where I feel safe, I feel comfortable? And I just could not understand, like, what just happened. So it was so many different thoughts. I just remember that I just wanted so many bad things to happen to him because of what happened to me and how I felt. And what's crazy is, as I got older and I've heard other people being touched at a young age and being molested and you know, different things that have happened to other young women and men, it was like, I started to feel like, well, my situation probably isn't as big as someone else's. And I just want to quickly say that, understand that no matter how big, small you think, any form of unwanted touch is not acceptable. It's not right. And it's not okay. It's just not okay. Don't feel like your situation is less than or above somebody's situation, because all of it is wrong, especially at that young age of like, why would somebody touch me inappropriately? Even though it didn't go any further than that, the whole point is that no one at that age, you shouldn't be touched like that at all by anyone. So let me state that. Like I said, as I got older and I heard other people's situations, it was like, I just felt like I shouldn't feel, it was almost like maybe I shouldn't feel bad that I had been through that when I was younger, because somebody has been through something way worse than me. So I kind of just brushed off my situation after that whole thing happened. And I kind of put it in the back of my mind and I just didn't deal with it. It was like, okay, he apologized. I told my mom about it. And then I just remember being very angry and mad and upset. But I didn't know how to deal with it. I didn't know how to process it. I didn't know what else to do with that other than to tuck it in the back of my mind. So now, going into my 20s, going back, looking at the relationships that I was dealing with, looking at the fact that I would allow men to just kind of just have their way in a relationship with me, not putting down any boundaries. But then as I got older, feeling bad for not doing things or being with a person. And it's just hard to really process in this moment, but I didn't have any boundaries. So, like I said, losing my virginity, which I talked about in one of my past videos, losing my virginity at 16, dealing with different things that I have been through. Also, being younger, there was other situations that I was in that I was like, hard to process. Now I'm operating as an adult and I'm noticing how I'm operating in these relationships, going from high school to now in my 30s. And I would honestly say that there's part of me that holds kind of like that guard up when you're dealing with men in certain ways, you know. And I used to want to understand, where was that coming from? And it just, thoughts and things in your mind, you just constantly wonder, what is the root? And I'm currently dealing with trying to understand that now in counseling and understanding, just how to be better in my relationship, how to be better for myself, how to be better, because I can't. And the one thing that you don't want to do is you don't want to bring past traumas into your new relationship, because that's not fair to the other person. And so me trying to operate and be all there and understanding that there's so much that I have to let go of that has happened in my childhood is very important, because like I said, when you start to operate in a place of how you will operate as a child and not as an adult, it's not going to help you. There's no growth in that. So I just say for people that understand that it's okay to look at what I've been through. I've been through this situation. How can I get help for it? How can I get out of the mindset? How can I let go of the thoughts that constantly repeat in my mind? And like I said, for me, counseling has definitely helped. And I'm continuing to do the work so I can be better. And it's not easy. It's not easy, but you have to let go of those traumas. It's kind of like that meme that they show where Jesus is basically saying that he needs you to let go of whatever you have that you're holding on to, so that I can bless you, so that I can give you more, so that I can give you the things that you need. Because every situation that we go through is for us to be a testimony to someone else. And then it will help them in their situation. So I'm not sitting here saying that I have all out the right answers to getting through trauma. But what I want you to know is when you can identify it and when you can know how to get the help, it will help you in the long run. And I also feel like as parents, if a child has been in a trauma, or if you learn that a child has been through something, we have to learn how to be able to get help for the kids as well. Because like I said, it's only going to travel on as they get older, the things that they've been through, the things that they have seen. But I just want to say that it's so important for us to be able to identify what we have been through, figure out the root, and deal with it, because it's only going to hold us back. And it's only going to hinder us from positive relationships. It's only going to hinder us from being able to show up for our kids when we're trying to parent. It's only going to hinder us from showing up in the world and being the best person that you can be, being kind, being caring. Because as you see in the world today, there is so many angry people, there is so many shootings, there are so many different things that people have been through, and they're mad and they're angry, and a lot of that stuff is due to what they have seen all their lives, from being a child to being an adult. And we have to learn that there is a way, through prayer, through counseling, through just being able to talk about what you have been through. We try to hide so deep and don't want to tell our kids about certain things that we have been through for fear that what it might have on them. And it's like, no, we need to be able to let these kids know so that they're aware of what life is out here. Like, things can happen to you. And we need to, as kids get older, of course we can't talk about everything, but as they get older, it's important that we let them know what trials and struggles that we have been through, so that they can be able to take these learning lessons as they get older. But, so I just hope that me sharing my story with you guys will be able to help anybody who deals with childhood trauma. And I just pray that you guys receive the message, and I hope that some of the words and different things that we talked about on this video will be able to help someone.